Okay, so now that we understand a little bit more about workflow steps, let's go and build this workflow in Droplet. The idea here is we're going to have a start step, which is already in there because that comes default with all Droplet workflows. And then we're going to have a little branch here. One branch will go to the department head, but only if the category on the request is supplies. Otherwise, it will go to the principal. And then in both cases, it will advance to a finance step. And if everything goes okay, it'll go to completed. But any of these three blue steps should have the ability to send it to this rejected status. So here's our form over in Droplet. To get to the workflow builder, you're just going to click right here. And this is that kind of default workflow setup I was mentioning in the last video. Now, there are a few ways to add workflow steps, and you can kind of see it as I hover over these nodes here. One way is just to click and drag from a submission pathway. This will create an in progress step. The other way is to drag from a rejection pathway, which will create a rejected status step. So that's way number one. And by the way, if you've inadvertently added a step or need to get rid of a step, you can delete it by clicking this delete trash can icon. Another way to add a step is to click an existing transition pathway and then click this button that says insert step. That's my preferred way if I know right where a workflow step needs to go, because it will properly space out the steps and make it look nice and clean. Okay, so now that I have this here, I'm going to rename this to be department head. And so I can just click where it says step 1 and type department head. Here I'm going to leave the status as in progress because the submission at this point is still in progress. It's not completed or rejected yet. And for this, I'm going to assign this to Adrian. Of course, as a different department is chosen, you could have this dynamically change by selecting someone based on the form. But for the purpose of this basic introduction to workflows, we'll just keep these as static assignments. I'll add another step for the finance review. And I can assign this to Tyler. Now, looking at our workflow, we have the principal that will be assigned the first review if the category is not supplies. So for this, I can add another transition pathway with another step for the principal. And then just have this connect up to the finance. The principal step I'll assign to Sarah. Okay, it's looking good. Okay, the next thing is just to add in a rejected step. For this, I can choose a rejection node and branch off a rejection pathway with a rejected step. I'm going to leave this and this unassigned, and I'm also just going to connect this to the rejected step and this to the rejected step. So now at any point, any of these approvers have the ability to submit or reject a request. Now, a couple tips on this before we wrap up this video and move on to workflow rules is to make sure that any in-progress step has an assignee of some sort. If it doesn't, when the submission reaches that step, it will just kind of be stuck there without any assignee and will need to be manually assigned by somebody on your team. The next piece of advice is to try to keep your workflow looking pretty concise and well-ordered. This is especially good if others are going to be working on your workflow. It's helpful to have this laid out in a neat, orderly way that makes sense to anybody else. All right, in the next video, we're going to look at these workflow rules for a department head being supplies only and a principal being not supplies, but also whether or not the finance step even runs based on the amount. Workflow rules up next. See you over there.